Hello everyone, this is Ed with iCracked. Today we're going to show you how to do an iPhone 6 Plus display assembly. Hello iCracked fans, today we're going to go over how to replace the display assembly on an iPhone 6 Plus using nothing but the iCracked Do-It-Yourself Toolkit. Included in the kit is a suction cup, a plastic pry tool, a Phillips head screwdriver, a pencil lobe screwdriver, a flathead screwdriver, and an ESD safe nylon spudger. Using only these tools, you can repair the iPhone 6 Plus. Some tools I would highly recommend would be something such as the iCracked, which is a device that has two suction cups to grab the frame and the glass and lift the glass off the frame. It's a much safer way of opening the tool. Or something like an iCracked, which is another method of opening this. Okay, now that we've covered all the tools we're going to use, one of the first things we want to do is go ahead and test and inspect the phone to make sure that every function of the phone does in fact work. One of the first things I like to do is go ahead and plug in the charging port. Mind the battery percentage. This one's at 69%. You'll get a green battery and a lightning port symbol to indicate that it is charging. We want it to at least come up 1 to 2% while we go through the initial checks. So I'm going to check my biometric scanner by placing my finger over there. It unlocks the phone and goes to the home screen. We'll go ahead and test the camera front and rear. And then we'll test the microphone for the rear and the front. By sliding the camera over to video and recording a simple test. Test 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. Play that back. Test 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. And while we're playing it back, you can also run the volume up and down to make sure that the buttons are in fact working. Bring your mute, you should get the silent symbol, and the phone should vibrate. So we'll go ahead and switch over to the front and record the same type of video. Test 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. And play that back to test the front upper microphone. Test 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. And lastly, we're going to test the lower microphone by recording a voice memo. Testing 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. Okay, up here at the top, you're going to see a blue speaker symbol. So if you touch that and turn it gray, that'll switch the audio from the loudspeaker to the ear speaker. We're going to again play that same video. Hold the phone up to your ear and you should be able to hear that recording, and you should see your screen go dark. And I'll simulate that here. And lastly, we're going to test touchability by touching an icon till they all shake. Move the icon all around and the icon should not drop. If your screen is badly damaged, I probably wouldn't do this for risk of cutting your fingers. And then touch the home button. They'll stop jiggling so you know that the home button itself is working. Now that I've completed those tests, I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I close any open applications to prevent any iOS corruption during the repair. See, it's at 70%. When it first we turned it on, it was at 69%. Now we'll go ahead and shut down the phone. And go ahead and disconnect your charging cable. While the phone's shutting down, you'll see a white swirl. Once that swirl's gone, the phone is shut down. Okay, to start, we're going to go ahead and remove the two pencil lobe screws, which are located left and right of the charging port, using the orange pencil lobe screwdriver. Now I'm using a magnetic mat to organize all my screws. If you don't have a magnetic mat, but maybe you have a whole lot of refrigerator magnets, You could use those and place your screws on them so that you don't get them lost. Now that the two pentalobe screws are out, we're going to want to lift the display assembly. Just above the audio jack, there's a step area in the plastic bezel for gripping and opening. But in order to do that, we're going to have to use a suction cup. So we're going to use a suction cup to grab the screen. If you have a badly damaged screen, the suction cup's not going to hold very well. So you may have to put a few layers of tape to fill in the cracks to give yourself enough suction to lift. We'll go ahead and give this one a shot. Okay, so using the suction cup, I'm going to grip this and slide my nylon spudger in here enough just to get the screen lifted up. Then take my nylon spudger and very gently lift the screen until it comes all the way up. Now we don't want to remove the screen as there's several cables here connecting the old display assembly to the logic board. One of the first things we want to do is disconnect the battery from the logic board by removing the two screws located here and here. Once those are removed, I'll go ahead and lift the metal plate that the screws were holding down. And then I'm going to take the pointed end of my nylon spudger, come underneath the battery flex cable, and disconnect it from the logic board. One of the things you don't want to do is dig down into there. You want to get just under the shelf of the cable and lift it up. Once your battery is lifted, just go ahead and fold it very gently up and out of the way. Next, we're going to come up here to the top at the EMI shield and remove the 5 screws holding the bracket down, which holds all the flex cables into place. I'm going to start by removing the top 2, the center, and then the bottom 2. Once those 5 screws are out, I'm going to go ahead and lift the retaining plate, which is now going to expose the cables. The first thing you're going to do is use the flat end of your nylon spudger and disconnect the front-facing camera cable. Next, we're going to disconnect the home button extension cable, which is located on the far edge. And then disconnect the LCD flex cable, and lastly, the digitizer flex cable. Okay, now that the display assembly has been removed from the frame, we're going to go ahead and set the frame aside. As you can tell from the new display assembly and the old, there's several components that have to be moved over. When you take the old one apart, you're going to want to keep all the brackets and screws very well organized and make sure that they go in the proper place of the new display assembly. In the event that you mix up a screw, if one is a little longer, when it goes in the hole, it'll actually scratch the paint on the front side and give you a nice little divot. So let's go ahead and set the new display assembly aside, and let's break down the original. Now I'm using one of the magnet mats here so I can keep all my parts very well organized. One of the first things I'm going to do is take the ear speaker retaining bracket off, which is held in place by 3 Phillips head screws. Now that 3 screws are removed, I'm just going to lift the bracket and set it on my mat. Go into the display assembly, you have the front-facing camera with the ear speaker underneath. You're going to very gently lift the front-facing camera out of its bracket and fold it back so that you can grab the ear speaker and lift it up. Now that the ear speaker is set aside, we're going to go ahead and move down to the bottom of the phone and remove the 2 screws holding the home button bracket into place. Once the screws are removed, just go ahead and lift the bracket and set it next to your screws. As you can see here at the home button flex cable, you're going to have a connection located right over here. Using the pointed end of the nylon spudger, very gently get underneath there and disconnect the cable. Now we're going to go ahead and remove this home button flex assembly itself. So I'm going to very, very carefully take the flat end of my nylon spudger, press it from underneath the home button to break the adhesive seal. And if your screen is badly shattered like this one, you're going to get some glass pieces coming up. Just like that. Any glass that stays attached, you can just very gently peel off. Then I'm going to take my nylon spudger and very gently lift the adhesive up. If it seems to be fighting you, go ahead and get a hair dryer or a hot air gun and give it a quick little blast, just enough to loosen up the adhesive on the glass side, not the cable side. Now that it's nice and warm, I should be able to very gently lift this cable. Just like that. You don't want to force the cable at all. If it's giving you a hard time, just give it a little blast of heat again until that adhesive is loose. Should you damage this cable, your home button will no longer work and your fingerprint scanner will no longer work, as this item is uniquely paired to your specific iPhone, so you cannot replace this part and have both functioning. So I'm going to turn this over and remove those little pieces of glass that came off on here and set my home button in a safe location. Next, we're going to remove the thermal plate. The thermal plate is held in place by a total of 8 screws. I'm going to remove the top screw, the bottom screw, as both these screws are different sizes. The 6 screws on the side are all identical, so you can go ahead and remove those. Now that all the thermal plate screws are removed, I'm going to come under and very gently lift this. You notice the home button extension cable runs down the thermal plate and is attached all the way down here at the base with more adhesive. It's very important that you heat the opposite side of this to loosen this adhesive. There's not much working area to try to get anything underneath, so this is going to be very slow. So I'm going to take and again give my glass a blast of heat. You could also do this with a hairdryer. And I'm going to take my thermal plate here and very gently come up under here and lift this cable. Don't let it fight you. If it's fighting you, just give it just a wee bit more heat. There we go. As you see, it very gently slid off because I got it warm enough. And there's no damage to the cable at all. Go ahead and set your thermal plate aside. Lastly, we're going to remove the front-facing camera cable, which also houses the ambient light sensor and the proximity sensor. I'm going to take the pointed end of my nylon spudger and come up underneath and lift that area. Now this cable is still held in place with the upper microphone, which is adhesive to the ear speaker boot. As we can see here, it's held in with more adhesive. So we're again going to turn this over and blast this area with hot air. You notice I'm directing it directly on the glass, avoiding the cables at all costs. Just a nice blast of hot air. Taking my nylon spudger, I'm going to very gently nudge the microphone up. There we go. Now this cable is removed. Now we can go ahead and start placing all the components onto the new display assembly. Okay, one of the first things we're going to do is we're going to transfer this ambient light filter, which is only located on the black displays. If you have a white screen, you will not have this filter. You can skip past this. Now to get this filter out, generally what we're going to do is take the flat end of our screwdriver and just very gently nudge it around. If you can't grab it, then again, give this area of the screen a blast of hot air to loosen that adhesive up. And it also helps to have a pair of tweezers handy. So now that I've got this nice and loosened, I can pull that out and then immediately transfer it to my replacement display assembly so that it does not get lost. And by gently placing it back in the location, just like that. Now that my ambient light sensor filter is in place, I'm going to go ahead and remove the anti-static protective coating on the back side of the LCD mirror. Set that aside, and then I'm going to take my thermal plate, make sure it's slid underneath this cable area, and lay it down into place. Now I'm going to begin by installing the upper and lower screws of the thermal plate so that I get the alignment done. Then I'll install the 6 side screws. Okay, now that my thermal plate is installed, I'm going to take the flat end of my nylon spudger and make sure that the home button flex cable, extension cable, is pushed before the ledge right here. So it should drop just below the ledge. Next, I'm going to take the home button, make sure that any glass bits that may be stuck to the adhesive are removed. Otherwise, your home button will not sit in its proper location. Go ahead and set the cable down. On the cable, you're going to see 2 alignment holes right here, and inside the bezel will be 2 alignment pins. Go ahead and drop those holes over the pins. And then drop the home button down back into place. Then I'm going to fold the connection over and reconnect it back here. Next, I'm going to take the home button bracket and place it back over the back side of the home button. You're going to notice an alignment pinhole located right above the screw hole. Go ahead and lay that down into place and install the left and right screw. Turn it over. Make sure you have a nice, good press. Now, we're going to work at the upper end of the phone. Now, the front-facing camera cable, the first thing you're going to do is align the microphone. You're going to find a little notch up here at the upper end of the microphone. Lay it down into place so that it sits over the pin. This way you know that you're correctly aligned. There we go. Okay, once the microphone is placed back down onto the boot, you're going to make sure that that pin is passed through the flex cable. You're going to make sure that that pin is passed through the flex cable to indicate that your microphone is correctly aligned. Next, we're going to take and double check that the rubber boot of the ambient light sensor is still located on the ambient light sensor. If that's missing, it may still be located inside the old phone, or it may have fallen out on your work area. If it has fallen off, just go ahead and press it back in so that the hole is offset to the right side with the screen sitting down like this. We'll go ahead and drop the proximity sensor and the ambient light sensor into its positions. It should naturally just drop right in and set flush like that. Next, we're going to take the ear speaker. On the bottom of the ear speaker, you're going to notice this oval area, which is going to fall directly in the oval area of the rubber boot. The spring should be located at the top edge of the display. It should fall right down, and then lay the front-facing camera over. The flex cable, if aligned correctly, will drop right over the 2 pins located at the left and right of the ear speaker to ensure that the flex cable contacts make proper contact on the springs. Then you're going to take the ear speaker retaining bracket, place it over so the plastic pins will pass through the flex cable and pass through the metal retaining bracket. install the 3 screws. Then take a look to make sure that everything is sitting nice and flush and that the pins have passed through the flex and through the metal bracket. Now we're ready to put the display assembly back onto the frame. One key thing to remember is that you make sure that the cable layouts are done correctly. It should be your digitizer, your LCD, the home button flex, and then the front-facing camera cable. And the easiest way to tell is if you look on the top of the cables, you should see this hardened piece of plastic which serves to protect the cables. If that's not visible, then it could be that one of your cables is laying on top, and then let's go ahead and place that in the correct position. Now that we have the new display assembly all set up and ready to go, we're going to reconnect it to the logic board. The very first connection we're going to work on is the digitizer connection. This is also very important that the digitizer connection is the only one that has no metal mounts at the ends and can be very easily warped or damaged. When you're connecting the digitizer cable, you want to make sure that you're perfectly aligned on its connection here on the logic board. It will allow you to partially disconnect due to the nature of the way the two meet, and could cause this connection to warp or damage, rendering this screen useless. So the first thing we want to do is come down and eyeball it to make sure that we are 100% connected. Once we're 100% connected, we'll give it a slight push, and you should feel the internal edge drop and then the external edge drop, and then press in the center. It should be nice and flat. Next, we're going to connect the LCD in the same manner. Make sure we're aligned, drop it, and you'll hear an audible click. Third, we're going to take the home button flex cable, and again, ensure that we're aligned, press it down, and you'll feel an audible click and a drop. Lastly, we'll take the front-facing camera cable, align it and drop it down, and again you'll hear an audible click. Now that all 4 connections are seated, we want to just give it a nice push, make sure none of the cables have come partially disconnected. We're going to line the retaining bracket up and install the 5 screws. Now that all 5 screws are installed, we're going to go ahead and reconnect the battery to the logic board just by simply lining up the flex cable and pressing it down till it snaps into place. We'll take the battery and cable retaining bracket and lay it back down into place as well. Now before we completely close the phone, we're going to go ahead and power it up and test the phone to make sure all our connections are good. You can go ahead and remove the screen protector cover if installed. Press and hold the power button until you get the Apple logo. Let the phone boot all the way, and then we'll go ahead and run through some quick digitizer tests. Now that the phone is booted, we're going to test all the functions. Go ahead and log it in. Make sure our biometric fingerprint scanner is working. Go ahead and make sure that you've connected to Wi-Fi. And the most important, we want to touch the touch screen. We're going to grab an icon and very gently move it completely side to side over every area of the screen, ensuring that the icon does not drop. We want to make sure it goes off screen and then back on screen. Now that I'm satisfied that those function, I'm just going to quickly test the upper area of the cable that we had to transfer. By taking the camera, record, testing 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. Playing it back. Testing 1, 2, 3, okay. 3, 2, 1. So we know that the front camera and the upper microphone is in fact working. We can go back to that voice memo we recorded earlier, play it back to make sure that the proximity ambient light sensor and ear speaker are also working. Now that I'm satisfied all this functions, I'm going to go ahead and once again close any applications that might be open. Power down the phone, and then we'll finish by closing the display assembly into the frame. Now you'll notice at the very top of the display, you're going to see a couple of ridges on the plastic bezel. Those ridges actually fit into the frame and hold the upper half of the screen into place. So you're going to take the display at a slight angle, press it into the frame, so the screen should be about a 20-degree opening. And then go ahead and press the lower section into place, and then run your fingers up the left and right side to completely close it. And the last thing we'll do is reinstall the two pencil lobe screws located at the bottom, left and right of the charging port. In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and turn the phone back on. Again, I'm going to test the fingerprint scanner. It unlocked the screen. I'm going to plug my phone in. It's currently at 70%. Make sure I get the green battery and the lightning port indicate that it's charging, and I want it to come up to at least 71% so that I'm satisfied that I successfully did this repair. We're going to go ahead and run through all the buttons. Make sure your volume up, down. Your mute works. You should get the indicator and the phone should vibrate provided you have that setting enabled. Test our home button. Make sure the screen pops up, down. Test our rear camera, front camera, and again record a short video to test all our microphones to ensure nothing else got damaged. Once you're satisfied that your phone is 100% working, you're done. Hope you enjoyed repairing your iPhone 6 Plus, and remember to go to iCracked.com for all your iPhone, iPad, and iPod needs.